Well, salutations, kindred spirit. Greetings. Welcome to another weekly Wednesday magic lesson, and this one should appeal to many of you as I get a lot of questions, a lot of requests about how I control cards. In particular, how do I control a card to the top of the deck? So we're going to talk about that exactly. Let me narrow it down. We're going to discuss about controlling a card from a dribble, where a spectator might just say stop and just look at a card. And then under some misdirection, a joke or a question, you're able to instantly control that card right to the top of the pack. This is the power of the side steal, and in this discussion we're going to talk about the M.P Side Steal, the Marlo Position steal. We'll actually talk about a lot of things regarding the side steal, and let's start here with maybe the most important lesson, one I've echoed from John Carney and one I'm sure he got from his mentors. Hey, the slights are the safety net for when the misdirection fails. So first and foremost, know that you're going to need some direction, some misdirection, avert the gaze. The slights are the safety net for when the misdirection fails. All right, before we discuss the mechanics of the side steal, let's talk about obtaining a break, as you do need to get a little finger break, a little flesh break below the selection. I do note that a lot of magicians, a lot of card workers will opt for a peak position where you have a square deck and you ask someone to say stop and then you just stick your finger in there where they stop you. This works, but I do prefer the dribble for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it allows me to square the deck after having the selection made. So what I'm going to do here is back jog. So let me just get right into it. I'll just dribble the deck. If you don't know that, just a couple fingers at the front, thumb at the back, bevel the deck slightly, finger on top, dropping the cards gently off the fingertips from one hand to the other, asking your spectator to stop you. As they stop, you're going to square the packet in your left hand, getting it nice and tidy. Show the full face of this card, and here's a good point. When you do this procedure, as opposed to a peek where they just look at a corner, in this procedure, the spectator gets to see the full face, as do the spectators around them. So you get backup rememberers in case someone forgets their card. And now we can do the dribble, and I start the dribble back. So I'm gonna start it backwards and then move upwards, allowing a step to form. That's greatly exaggerated, but there it is. The Jack of Spades stepped out of the back. And now, as the deck is askew, I have a reason for the hands to square the pack. So there's a reason for the hands to come together, and it's under this action that we're going to execute that side steal mechanic. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Let's go back to the first lesson. Avert the gaze. So as I do this, I say, hey, stay stop, and oh, what's your name? Ask a question, do a little joke, do something that's going to have the spectator look up at you as you begin the side steal mechanics. So the lion's share of this discussion will be on the M.P Side Steal, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. First, I wanted to reference some other side steal resources for the aspiring student, and let's begin with Ed Marlowe's The Side Steal. This is a great manuscript, part of the Revolutionary Card Technique series. This is a book that really should be in every cardman's bookshelf. Put that on your list if you don't have it already. We're going to talk about Marlowe's deliberate side steal, and as I speak this, I got to mention Paul Cummins. He was the inspiration for me to learn the deliberate side steal. You might find his work in his notes from a shuffle deck in use. Paul also had a DVD on the side steal, and these are all worth your attention if you're interested in learning the technique. So let's start the discussion there with the deliberate steal by Ed Marlo. As with most side steal techniques, the deliberate steal begins by obtaining a break in preparation. So we've got our little finger break established below the selection. Note that the right hand controls the uppermost part of the deck. The part above that break is held by the thumb at the rear, the fingertips at the front of the deck. This allows the left hand to open here, and this is covered from the front in this procedure. And then the third fingertips enters that break. Let me expose it this way. The third fingertip goes in and pushes the card out at a diagonal. Now your goal here is to get it at the tip of the pinky, and then you'll feel a corner hit the tip of your thumb. So this card is now under my control, especially if I apply a little pressure at the corner here with my thumb and first finger. Now I can just slide that hand out to the left, and those two pressure points allow me to extract the card. If I'm moving it to the top, I just shift it over to the side and on the top. If I'm going into a palm, and often I'll do this either way, using the fingertips to push upward, either moving it to the top or upward into a full palm. This is the real advantage of the Marlo Deliberate Steal, is in that you can take a selection peeked from the middle of the deck right into a full palm without too much procedure. So that is the Deliberate Steal, and as mentioned, if you're interested in this technique, do yourself a favor and check out Marlo's Revolutionary Card Technique series chapter on the side steal. And lastly, let's talk about this M.P Side Steal, the Marlo Position Steal. This is the technique that I most commonly use when I need to efficiently control a card to the top of the deck. For the unblinking camera, that's what it looks like, although in real life we're going to have our spectators blinking, right? We're going to avert the gaze with questions. We're going to control the attention, and if you're not doing that, you might as well stop now. Moving onward, we'll need to know this. Marlo in New Tops. This is your reference, Mint. It's a book that's a compilation of Marlo contributions from the New Top magazine. And as most recommendations on this channel, when I mention a book, it's probably worth your attention, so check out Mint if you get that opportunity. With that information out of the way, let's talk about the Marlo Position Side Steal. So as with the Deliberate Side Steal, we'll have our selection procedure made from a dribble. The spectator says stop. We show them the card at that position as the left hand squares its packet so that when we begin this back jog dribble, we can establish a step at the selection. This can either be formed into a little finger break in preparation for the steal, or do what I do most of the time and just establish the side steal as we square the pack. So as the hands come together, the thumb will lift up at this step lightly as the left fingers lower the right side of the deck so that the third fingertip of the left hand can push the selection to the left. This is like the Deliberate Steal. The difference here comes in your second fingertip of the left hand, which is going to move the selection down into a Marlo position or a Tenkai position. This is what Marlo calls the MP position. I think Tenkai position would be here. So if you want to check the references on that, you can decide for yourself whether that's different, but sticking with the reference, we're going to call this the MP position. So once again, the fingertips open the side of the deck, the third fingertip pushes it to the right, and the second fingertip pulls the card down. This is where the advantage of the MP position comes in. The fingertips of the right hand on top of the pack, they don't need to leave the edge of the deck as with the Deliberate Side Steal where they need to move to the right. They can stay right on the top. All you have to do here, again, applying a little pressure with your thumb and fingers at the corner as your right wrist moves to the right slightly and upward. It brings the card with it. Note the fingertips can stay here, and then the card gets just deposited right onto the top of the deck. From here, there's the card. Your thumb moves backward and then pulls the corner upward. Alternatively, you can use the first finger to square it as well. Let me do this again for you. Your spectator says stop. You show the card, square the left hand, dribble back slightly, avert the gaze, take a minute, pause here. I don't go right into the move when I do this. I do take the time to address the audience. Only when they're not looking do the hands come together. The left fingertips lower as the right hand lifts slightly. The third finger goes in, the second finger pushes that card downward. The fingertips at the front of the pack, and then this is an angle. We move the wrist back and then move that card up to the top, and then the thumb pulls it upward, and this is under the gaze of, hey, what's your name? Or some question like that. That is the details on the MP Side Steal, and if you would like some more references, I'm going to point you to that book, Mint. Go check that out. All right, so that completes our mini dissertation on the side steal. I hope you found something of value. Maybe you're a beginner student and you're just working on establishing the break from a peek. Maybe you want to get into a direct side steal right into full palm, or the MP steal to cover those angles. Whatever you choose, I hope the value is of interest and that you've enjoyed the time we've spent today. I certainly appreciate your attention and your energy. Thank you always for that. And hey, that's going to be a wrap on this one. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao for now.